And the great Alexander is pitching again in Washington. I'm talking baseball, like Reggie Quisenberry talking baseball.
Welcome back, sports fans, to another special edition of Sports Talk is McKimmie. We are back for Season 2, and this is going to be a record-breaking season. But tonight, we just talked about the Razorbacks. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Major League Baseball. And there's so many stories out about Major League Baseball this week. And Mike, I was just going to start off first talking about we had a manager that was just fired that we talked about last week.
We did.
You said bye-bye Matt Williams. This week, Matt Williams was let go from the Washington Nationals. But a little bit of controversy right now over in Washington. And, of course, like I said last week, when you mention Washington, you can talk about controversy with the Senate and the Congress. It's always there. But now the Washington Nationals, it seems like every week there's a story about, missed expectations, fighting in the dugout. Now you have Matt Williams fired, and they're possibly looking at Cal Ripken to come in as a replacement, a person with no managerial experience, similar to when Matt Williams was hired, no managerial experience. And I'm sitting here right now questioning, there was a report that came out of Washington said one of the main complaints at the end of the season, they did an interview of all the players at Washington, and one of the main complaints was lack of managerial experience is why the team wasn't winning. And that's what the players said. And now you have management looking at hiring someone, and Cal Ripken was one of the greatest baseball players of all time. You got this streak, 3,000 hits. I mean, you can go on and on with his accomplishments, Mike, but what is Washington management thinking right now at possibly bringing in someone that's very similar to the person that they just let go?
Well, Dave, I don't really know because, we're looking at just what you said. The players had an approval rating for Matt Williams that rivaled, that of Congress today. And when you are going through the thought process of, what is it going to take all this talent that you have, right, the rotation, the bullpen, the outfield, the infield, the best, probably MVP, of the league on this team. This team underperformed, and it has done so for the last 2 years. And I think you hit it on the head. Do you want an unproven manager stepping in? And I can tell you, Dave, from my own experience as a Dodger fan, what it's like to have somebody who is unproven step in and take over. And it's tough. It's tough on the manager because he knows he's always going to be criticized. And there's no experience. It takes those first year or 2 or 3 years to figure out how you're going to manage the pitching staff. How are you going to set the lineup against lefties and righties, etc. And, that my belief really is that if the Dodgers don't make it to the World Series, perhaps even win it, Mattingly should be gone. And, right now they're looking at possibly losing their first 2 games to the Mets and falling behind 0-2, losing with Kershaw and Greinke on the mound, which I think spells doom, and really dooms every pick that I made in our last show last week.
Well, Mike, speaking of picks, we did talk about, we made our picks last week, and since we've been on the show last time, there was, of course, the wild card games. Now we got the National League Divisional Series that has started. Of course, the first wild card game that was played, it was the Pirates and the Cubs. The Cubs just completely shut down the Pirates, and unfortunately, my Pirates got knocked out. They're finished. They're done. The Cubs, Arrieta just absolutely annihilated them, shut them out.
Like he does everybody else.
It was just great pitching performance by him, and I hate for my Pirates to lose, but if they're going to lose, I don't mind them losing to a team that hasn't been to a World Series in 100 years. So we'll just have to see. Of course, now they're playing the Cardinals and the Cubs are playing, and they're currently tied 1-1 in the National League Divisional Series. And you mentioned the Dodgers. Don Mattingly, under a lot of pressure. He has a monster payroll.
$300 million, Dave. You got to win with $300 million on the field.
If he was a Yankee manager, would he be gone by now? If he was managing any other team with that amount of payroll, would he be gone? Because for some reason it seems like he has a lot more leeway out with the management in Los Angeles.
Well, the management of Los Angeles, for some reason that I haven't figured out yet, and a lot of people haven't figured out yet, believes in Don Mattingly. And I'm not sure why, because we really haven't seen much on the field from the day-to-day games. Like, I mean, in the playoffs last night, okay, bases are loaded, 7th inning, best pitcher of our generation, Clayton Kershaw, is in trouble. Okay, if you're going to replace him, replace him. He replaced him with Pedro Baez, not one of the better Dodger relievers. Gives up the 2-run single to David Wright, and all of a sudden a 1-0 deficit turns into a 3-0 deficit. Personally, I thought Kershaw should have remained in the game because Wright didn't have one good swing against him up to that point. But if you bring somebody in, the question was put, why not bring in Hatcher, who has performed well better? And he said, well, I didn't want to just use him for one game. I was like, for one batter. This is not April. This is not May. We're not playing a weekend series in San Diego or Denver. This is game 1 of the National League Division Series, and you have to manage accordingly. And Mattingly just hasn't figured that out yet. I don't think he ever will, Dave.
Well, Mike, Mattingly, too, I mean, he's had, let's talk about the man that he's coaching against tonight, or managing against. You have Terry Collins with the Mets, who's taken a team that wasn't expected to get this far, has gotten this far, and the contrast between Collins and Mattingly, you can really notice. I mean, Collins, they brought over what was considered, some people consider a hot-headed Cuban player, and Cepedis, and he ends up busting out, and they're talking possible National League, MVP, that he might be in the race for it. How he handled that situation with him bringing over. Mattingly with Puig is a completely different story. It's been nothing but chaos, drama, and has distracted the team. So, the contrast, like we spoke earlier when we were off camera, or off the air, we were talking about the contrast between those managers, but just straight up, Mike, if the Dodgers do not beat the Mets in this series and they're eliminated, or they don't make the World Series, does Mattingly come back?
From everything that I've read and I can gather, Stan Kasten, who's really in charge of these decisions, is a big Mattingly supporter. And if you can believe what you read in the newspapers, in the quotes from Stan Kasten, then I would say he's coming back. I just don't know how you bring back, a $300 million payroll manager if he's unable to win a series against, I think you're talking about Terry Collins. I think he should be manager of the year from what he's done with all the injuries that they've had, the young pitching staff. He didn't want Cespedes. Cespedes didn't want to come there, but yet they've made it all work, and they ran away from the Nationals.
Well, and in closing, Mike, before we go to our next segment, the Washington Nationals, very much like the Republican-led Congress, no one knows who's going to be in charge of the Congress and the Washington Nationals. A lot of drama with them, but a lot going on with baseball. We'll come back. We have a little bit more baseball to talk. We'll be right back in just a minute on Sports Talk is McKimmie.
Moses at the vet, Rusty again is a Met, and the great Alexander is pitching again in Washington. I'm talking baseball, like Reggie Quisenberry, talking baseball. Carew and Gaylord Perry, Seaver, Darby Schmidt, and Vida Blue. If Cooperstown is calling, it's no fluke. They'll be with Willie, Mickey, and the Duke.